Well, Simon, I suppose first we should ask about the coronavirus. Are you expecting to play games in front of no fans? It's starting to sound like this is a real possibility.
I think possibility's the appropriate word. We're planning for our season as normal, but also understanding that there is a possibility that could occur. So it's our job as the administration of the club to ensure that we're planning for all scenarios. The playing group, the coaches are planning to play games of footy as scheduled. So that's their focus. Clearly it's going to have a different feel to it this season. So I think it's a challenge at times, but also a real opportunity for us as a club to make sure we're prepared.
Will you make that call yourself, or will that be an AFL call, or will it be a government call? Who makes that call?
Which call?
To play with no fans or fans there?
The reality of that, my understanding is that would be more of a government call. We've heard the Andrews government in Victoria state some slightly stronger intentions, but the reality of it is, I know from an AFL perspective, we're planning as per normal at this stage, but when and if government advice comes that there's a limitation around mass public gatherings, we'll deal with that.
If you can't have your fans there, what happens to the money they've paid for their seats and their memberships and all these kinds of things?
Yeah, there's a whole raft of scenarios that we're working through currently. That's not as it stands, and I really want to make the point that we're planning for it to go ahead as normal. We've got our first home game, so the first impact on us is in round 2. If a situation like that was to occur, it is still a hypothetical, so we're finalising our position on that in the next few days.
So we heard some numbers yet on what sort of impact that might have on you financially?
We've established a working group about a month ago in relation to this, when it started to become more and more seriousness, and the potential for it impact an AFL season became apparent. And we've run a whole bunch of scenarios around not just the financial impact of the club, but all operations. But certainly we've looked at scenarios from no impact whatsoever, to a slight decrease in sentiment and crowds being a bit concerned, right through to the potential of a lockout as well too. So obviously that would have a significant impact, but we're working closely with the AFL to work out what the scenario would be in that instance.
In terms of that,
be no shows, like older, maybe vulnerable people will decide to stay out of mixing with the public, even if you don't get to a point where you're playing in empty stadiums?
There's a possibility of that, Mark, absolutely. There's the difficult thing for us at the moment is the uncertainty. We're not sure how people will react. If the season goes ahead as planned, is there going to be an element where people are concerned, or, as you said, an older cohort might think to stay away? We can't control that, but what we can control is our response to those sort of situations. So that's where all the planning's going.
Has the possibility arisen at all that, given the whole point of being here is to make a big crowd comfortable, that if there's no crowd, there would be no reason to play the game at Optus Stadium, that maybe should be played somewhere else?
That's, again, a scenario that we're working through. The reality is that this stadium, being a preeminent stadium in the world, is fully geared up. So I can understand your point, but there are items like all of the facilities, the quality of the surface, the LED and signage and everything else. It's set up optimally for a broadcast coverage as well too. So we'll work with Optus Stadium as our partners to make sure that clearly there'd be a change in the operating arrangements, given a far less need for potentially certain amounts of staff. But it makes a heck of a lot of sense that there wouldn't be any change to the venues themselves.
So what things you can control, sorry Paddy, Collingwood's cancelled their open training tomorrow. Is that something that you look at doing as well?
Yeah, open training is an interesting concept, and essentially that's just suggesting that anyone can come down. I know where Collingwood train is similar to us in that it's a public space. So what we are controlling is looking at the amount of interaction our players will have with public and limiting that for the time being. We've stated regularly, certainly since I started in this position, that we want to be as open, as accessible as we possibly can. We're going to be sensible with our approach in relation to that at this point in time, to ensure that in reality our players are protected as much as we can. We all, I think, understand the need for the games to go ahead as best as we possibly can. So that involves ensuring the players are healthy and in great shape. So with that in mind, we're going to be really conservative with the way we approach that.
What about like this morning? You've got one more. You've got players on tables with members of the public. They're probably shaking hands, taking selfies. Do you start to worry about that kind of stuff?
We've worked actually through that and really limited that, in the sense that the players only came in at the very last minute, and they'll work head off as soon as the formalities are finished. And we've made it pretty clear with communication to the attendees today and our members that their normal operating conditions have changed, in the sense that going to limit autographs and selfies and similar things, which is not something we'd like to do, but we think it's important we prioritise the health and well-being of the players for the time being.
Simon, you say you've sort of worked the finances. Gillen said the other day, potentially round 5 we're looking pretty good. Round 6 is your Len Hall tribute game, Geelong. I mean, what would that do? Your penthouse, it's your peak home and away game. What would that be like if it was no crowd there?
We have a derby later in the year that's pretty important as well too. Look, it's something again that just goes into the financial modelling of the club. We've got an incredibly capable financial team, report to an unbelievable board. We're working through all of that at the moment, and whilst you're right, it is another game. It's a really important game for us on a number of factors, just not the attendance. So that's something we're working through at the moment, and if and when that situation occurs, we'll deal with it, we'll get through it, and we'll be fine. And that's another really important for our members and supporters. If this season is going ahead as normal, we want them to turn up, we want them to be comfortable, to get the balance right between being cautious but also continuing to support the clubs. So there's times of uncertainty that organisations and codes and businesses that go through. That's one of those, and that's the beauty of being in an organisation that has a really supportive and strong membership group behind us.
Should you miss home games and there be lockouts, is it hundreds of thousands? Is it potentially millions that could be missing from the bottom line?
It depends on the quantum of it. If it's 1 or 2 home games, it's certainly manageable. If it ends up being a whole season, clearly that's going to have a really significant financial impact. We as a code, I know Gil referred to the fact that we've got a strength. We're an incredibly professional code. It's a collegiate group as well, in the sense, and we've seen that in recent years with approach to competitive balance and equalisation. Most people in this code, particularly in decision-making positions, understand the greater good, and I'm sure we'll work together as a code to ensure that we get through it all.
And the dialogue from the AFL, have they opened up and told you that there could be financial support coming the club's way should something like that happen?
Something we're working through as we speak at the moment. Clearly, this is a fast-moving and pretty fluid situation, so when the scenario presents itself and changes so regularly and day to day, there's different things to consider. So AFL have been fantastic, as they always are, with levels of communication, and that'll continue to take shape in the next few days, I'd say.
Just one on this morning,
Yeah.
Simon, with I guess all that you've changed off field, does this feel like a bit of a marker in refreshing your club, do you think?
From an on-field perspective? Yeah, absolutely. In reality, there's significant changes that were made towards the end of last year, and in a funny sort of way, in the off-season, you're operating and you're preparing. So we've had 2 Marsh games, which we've taken real encouragement out of, but they're pre-season games. So for us now, official season launch, getting ready for first away game, and round 1 next week against the Bombers is when the pressure will really start to come. But in reality, we couldn't have asked for much more in terms of the playing group, the way they've taken to the changes that have been made, the way they're driving this together. Our AFLW side are setting the benchmark in the competition at the moment, so really excited to actually start to see the fruits of the labour.
Jesse Hogan, it doesn't appear that he's here.
No.
Is he going to be joining back in with the players at any time soon? Do you have an update on Jesse?
The focus for us with Jesse is not the time but the right time. All we're worried about is his health and well-being and welfare. There's some really encouraging things that are happening with Jesse at the moment, and we're really excited to welcome him back, but it's not a matter of putting a time date on it. It'll be the right time. Can't wait to have him back and welcome him back to the organisation and get him back up and going, but it'll be the timing and the football element is secondary to making sure he's in a great space.
So the space where he's at, the things that are happening, we've heard that there's some positive movement in that area. What can you elaborate a little bit on that?
No, I'm not going to elaborate any further other than to say we can't wait to have him back and really looking forward to it. But as I said, the football component's secondary to us. We just want to make sure he's in as good as possible space as he can be to confront everything that he needs to.
Are you any clear as to when it could potentially be?
No, not at this point in time. As I said to you, it'll be the right time rather than as soon as possibly can.
And the support he's getting, what sort of support is he getting, or the services he's getting at the moment?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to go into any further detail on that at this point in time, other than to say we're really comfortable with the work that's being done and the progress that's being made, and we look forward to working him back at the right time.
Are you confident we'll see him again in purple?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. Timing is up in the air, as I said, but I think at some point in time this year we're looking forward to having him back.
You sounded a little bit reluctant there, but you're sort of no doubt that he'll be back though?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to welcoming Jesse back at the right time.
And you believe this year? You're
Yeah,
optimistic about
I think so. Yeah, I think that's a likely outcome.
So with memberships, have you seen a slowdown in taking up a membership since the coronavirus?
No, I think what I think I've seen, we're tracking ahead of where we were at the same time last year. Certainly tracking towards breaking the 50,000 barrier again for the 6th time running, which is really encouraging from our perspective. And the reality of it is that we're charging along as if the season is going ahead as normal, and we haven't seen any significant downturn at this point in time. So, again, as I said earlier on, we really encourage our members. We need them more than ever during these sort of times, and we're really pleased that it's continuing to track as it is.
Have you consulted any European sports clubs about what it's like to play in empty stadiums? Because it must be a different experience for players.
Yeah, no, not as yet. We haven't gone down that path. Had a few more things to worry about on the home front rather than ringing up AC Milan.